because Pep Guardiola has raised a few eyebrows and told Premier League footballers to go on strike if they want their concerns over player welfare to be taken seriously. Managers and captains, of course, as we know, held a virtual meeting with the Premier League last night. A huge amount of unhappiness about the place over a lack of player welfare, and it has been growing. Now, I know, Martin, this is very close to your heart, but as far as Pep was concerned, it was time to shock the authorities.
Should be, the players or the manager all together and make a strike or make something, because if just for the words, it's not going to be solved, because the UEFA, the FIFA, the Premier League, the broadcasters, the business is more important than the welfare. The simple example that all around the world, if I substitution, here still 3. Tell me one argument to take care to be more welfare to the players for this one. And here, for everyone decide for themselves, we don't do it. Now I have to discuss about that. What they decide will be okay for me. It's not necessary to do it, because we talk about the welfare. It's just for the players, the association of the players say, okay, we don't play anymore until we solve that situation. And after, maybe the people are going to pay attention. But you have to decide for the broadcasters, for the Premier League, or for the rest to take decisions on behalf for the welfare for the players. This is not going to happen.
So, Simon, I know you had your own views on this yesterday, and it was pretty much based along the lines of get on with it. Guardiola believes that the complaints about overburdened players have fallen on deaf ears. He's predicted talk of such action would shock the authorities into reducing the number of matches.
Look, my opinion is well rehearsed, and it's very formulaic. It is a situation where players do have to pull together, get on with it. We're in very unique circumstances around the world, but they're in a very rarefied environment. And I would empathise, and I do empathise with some of their thinking at times, but I would empathise more if the ridiculous argument that Pep advances about it's all about business, it's all about money, if the main beneficiaries of all that money wasn't Pep and the players. Because the clear line is very clear. 80%, as an average, 80% of all money going into football in the Premier League goes directly into the players and the managers' wages.
80%.
80%. Now, in some instances, it's slightly bigger. At United, it'll be slightly smaller because of huge turnover. But as an average, now, how do you make an argument to say that FIFA, and I agree with him that FIFA's all about generating revenue. I agree with him all about the Premier League generating revenue. But who are the main beneficiaries of these so-called business transactions that are all about money? And it would have more water if the players and the managers didn't pretty much exhaust that tank. Now, if they're prepared to turn around and say, well, actually, we recognise that we are the main beneficiaries of it, but we're prepared to reduce our this forest wildfire of player salaries down to a level that's far more manageable. If you, in exchange, stop loading the fixture list with more and more fixtures and balance it off and look at winter breaks, you might have a different discussion, but there's no parallel universe where they'll have that discussion. They'll take all of the upsides, all of the wonderful world of being a footballer.
Simon, are you saying that they're creating more games because the current structure doesn't allow, there's not enough money currently?
Correct. It's a wildfire of wages, isn't it, Martin? You've got to admit, when you were paying, but when you were playing, £50,000 a week might have been a top salary. £500,000 a week now is a top salary. We're moving into the territory where most football clubs are losing money. Only a few of them make money, and the bulk of it, it's not a debate, it's not me being clever.
If there are less games, then that financial adjustment will be made, wouldn't it?
If there were less games, then that financial adjustment would have to be considered and have to be factored in.
But maybe that's what they are talking about. I think we are flogging the players currently.
But they're
whether
not.
You like that or not.
No, what they're talking about is less games. They're not talking about a rebalancing of the financial landscape. Martin, you know it. Come on, be honest.
Yeah, but they're already trying to add more games, aren't they, to an already clustered fixture list?
To generate the finances to meet the fire of player salaries that they can't control. And the reason why they can't control it is because Middle Eastern, Russian guys come in and don't care.
The players are now basically, they're posturing, they're saying, "Look, we don't think we can fulfil all of these fixtures. We as a players want to play in every single game, but you're not making it possible because there's just too many of them."
Well, they're not. It's not a case of not making it possible. What the argument is that because of COVID and the landscape now, it's putting more undue pressure. And I said to the boys in the studio,
I don't think it's just COVID, this.
No, I don't think it is either. But I think COVID gives it an extra layer of validity in their mind, right? And I said to the boys in the studio, you wait till the Premier League clubs hear what the Premier League rule is, when it's clarified, because we've been hearing, we want clarity about what gets games called off. I said to the boys in the studio, the moment they hear what the clarity is, watch the narrative go up about not playing these games.
Yeah, but look, if you look at the clarity, so we're now in our third season with COVID. So we had The first season, 2018-19, was curtailed with
Or
fans,
1920,
of the fans in the stadium.
Yeah.
Then we had a whole season last year with nobody in the stadium.
Yeah.
And now we're into our third season, and still yet we
Who's this game
we
for,
just
Martin?
suddenly get a directive of how many players that you need ready for.
well,
It's 13 players plus the kids now.
Well,
Isn't it?
what they wanted to do was they wanted to be flexible. And
Why
they
is
wanted
that taking so long?
But I think that a case of taking each case in points and taking each situation into unit consideration. Now they're being forced because of UEFA's rule and a constant clamour to put a clear position down. And now the clubs are going to start carping on and try and find a way around the solution that the Premier League have put, which is the minimum amount of players you can have. Now you've got to remember, this game isn't just about players. It's about fans. And the fans want to see football. They want to see it on the 26th. They want to see it on the 28th. They want to see it on the 31st.
Yeah.
The 28th schedule is underscored by Amazon buying the entire fixture list, and all of that money that they put into it drops into the players' salaries. And you just simply can't have it both ways.
And
you
Martin,
can't.
you can see what's coming in here. Kevin, North Wales. Simon, Martin, I love your show on a Friday. I'm sick of listening to Klopp and Pep moaning about playing so many games. They are paid a fortune, as Simon says. I would give my right arm to play football for a living. Please just get on with it.
Well, I'm just frightened that we're going to kill the golden goose here in terms of the players have to be looked after. I continually come on this show and talk about player welfare. I want players at the table with all the main key stakeholders deciding when are these fixtures being played. They keep adding games layer after.
You can't have the tail wagging the dog. The
you
players
can,
are employees.
You can, and
you can't have actors telling movie studios
it's
when
very
they can
interesting to hear the PFA becoming much more active in this
leave
area,
off.
and it's about time. It's
Leave
about
off,
time that we
They've
have
got
that.
bugger all credibility. They can't
I don't
come
care
to
what
the
they've
table
got.
right
We
now.
need players there at the table. Without the players, you don't have a game, Simon.
And without the clubs
And
and
it's
without the
very
finances,
interesting
without the clubs and the finances, the players
This
ain't nowhere
is a
to play.
defining moment, hearing managers backing players about striking. We've not heard that before.
Would you go on
It's a
strike, Martin?
disgrace.
Would you support strike
With
action?
the leadership of my football club, the manager wanted me to do that. Yes, it was in the best interest of the long-term gain or the health of the players. Yes, why not?
But it's
Look,
outrageous, Martin.
we've got players who are coming back from COVID. It's 10 days isolation, but players are playing on day 12.
Martin,
Are we putting the players' health at risk by coming back from COVID too quickly?
No, Martin.
We don't know, do we? It's
Martin,
all very new.
It's a preposterous assertion to suggest that there needs to be a strike. That's an outrage.
I
it's an
don't
absolute
believe that's
outrage.
going to happen,
Nobody,
Simon. But they're having
wants-
to threaten to say that to
Nobody-
get to the table.
but they
at
shouldn't
a
even-
table they should be at anyway,
Well,
by right.
Would they see
are
the
at
threat
a
through,
table.
man? Would they see the threat through?
We'll have to see how it proceeds.
Would you see the threat through?
If I felt it was in the best interests of my colleagues, then yes, I would.
I hope.
And if that means that our wages are cut and there's things that happen.
But you won't have that, Martin. You can sit there now with that luxury of being subjective about something that wouldn't affect you. You sit there as players, right, and you're taking all of the upside. It is less than ideal. We all know it's less than ideal. But the bottom line is players are represented. There's not a football club owner that thinks there's any benefit in his multi-million-pound players being injured and him getting no return on his investment. But there's a bigger picture, which is the broadcasters drive football. You guys have taken all the benefit of that, and you then have the audacity to sit there and go, we'll take all the upside. I nearly fell off my chair when I'm listening to Pep Guardiola going, you're on £15 million a year, fella. Right? And in no circumstances would you be anywhere near that if the game wasn't driven by money. You're taking all of it,
In fairness,
and then you push back, and then you've got all the
Liverpool,
medical resources.
Actually,
And Mark,
Liverpool are getting on with it, Jim. Liverpool are getting on with it.
They're carping.
Yeah, but
They are carping.
They've drawn a game the other day with a decimated midfield. They've got no Van Dijk. They're getting on with it. Chelsea don't have a front
But they've
line.
got to get on
But
with
we're
it, Martin.
rotating.
They are,
We're
because
getting on
COVID
with
is
it.
causing
Everybody's
this.
getting
It's
on with
another
it.
layer of difficulty for the teams to fulfil these.
But
Oh,
Martin,
dear.
you can see the two different factions here. Earlier in the week with the virtual meeting of the chief executives who said, we've got to see this out. We've got to crack on and see it out. And then yesterday, the managers and players and Pep comes out, what about strike action? Two very different
That's
moves.
because they're looking at the Nations League, looking at South American teams coming in. It's getting bigger and bigger. People just ignoring the biannual World Cups to try and create a fixture list that we can all work within. These stakeholders have got to get together. And the players need to be there, Jim.
And that's
Without
got-
the players, there wouldn't be a game, and they need to be respected. This is about respect
Yeah,
for the
but
players.
Martin-
I
Before
get
you
that,
add
Martin,
extra
but I must
games-
admit, I'm with Simon, and Simon's phrase yesterday was power through it.
Jim White and Simon Jordan, Monday to Thursday morning 10 till 1 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.